Welcome back to the Malt Miller YouTube channel. Today, on a very wet and freezing cold Monday morning, we are right here in Bristol. Why are we here, James?
Well, Rob, guess what? It is part 2 of our brand new Brew With You series. And today we've got another very special guest lined up to go and brew a beer with. Rob, should we go and see who it is?
This is a special one.
Morning, lads.
Hey! Morning, Radim.
Come in.
Hello.
So yes, that's right, we're here in Bristol and we are brewing with none other than the amazing Radim, who we know and love incredibly well. If you haven't seen it before, Radim is currently the global brand ambassador for the amazing Budvar, and a couple of years ago took myself and Martin all the way to the Czech Republic to visit the brewery and learn everything there is to know about Czech Lager, about how to serve it, how to brew it, how to store it, and it was amazing. So first off, Radim, thank you. It's amazing to see you again.
Welcome.
Now, you may have noticed if you watched that series that Rob couldn't make it to the Czech Republic.
Sad times.
The best thing to do was to bring Rob along to brew with Radim in his awesome brew space and really kind of immerse himself into this slice of the Czech Republic that you've created here in Bristol.
Thanks.
Radim, you're obviously a really big celebrity in the beer world,
All right.
in the commercial beer world. You're known far and wide as being the global brand ambassador for Budvar. But what a lot of people might not know is also you're a massively avid home brewer as well. Where did that come from?
Well, I think it came from the passion and the love for beer. And I started, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. Yeah, standard thing, 1 kettle, 1 on the stove, 2 plastic buckets. When I first tasted my homebrew, I was like, wow, yeah, you can make beer at home. And then ever since, you know, it was before I got into like commercial sphere of brewing. I took an education, I started, you know, investing in the equipment, more reading, got into it, and yeah.
So just to nail this down, was it the homebrew that took you into the commercial world? Yeah, it was, rather than the commercial world taking you into homebrew.
So that's the reason actually Budvar found me as well. I did a homebrew competition in lockdown, and that's how Budvar got to me.
Right.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't realise that was how actually your relationship with Budvar started, through a homebrew competition. That's amazing.
So I was basically brewing well, any type of lager. I chose Czech style lager, obviously.
Yeah, well, if you're good, you know.
And yeah, that's how the brand manager found me, and they were looking for someone who understands a little bit of beer, speaks English, understands hospitality, and yeah, and here I am.
just dialing back a little bit. So you're obviously from the Czech Republic, but you were in Scotland. What took you to Scotland? Why were you there?
Whiskey.
Okay.
Everything comes back to booze.
Well, it's barley, right?
Yeah.
One way or another.
Radim, this is a great brew space that you got here. We can talk about that and the system a little while later. However, let's get involved with the recipe. What are we brewing?
Well, surprise, surprise, it's a lager.
Yeah,
and it's a Czech style lager.
Yeah,
awesome. No, it's all, you know, sort of paying tribute to where I come from, and I think, you know, lager in a homebrew scale, it's sort of underrated, or people or homebrewers find it quite challenging.
Yeah,
I think, you know, you don't have to find it challenging to achieve the right flavor if you follow the steps that are necessary in order to achieve that product. But yeah, so Czech style lager also is the year of the lager finally.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so we're brewing today a Czech style lager, going around between 4 or 5%. Really trying a new malt from Weyermann.
so that you're using the floor malted Bohemian Pilsner malt
correct. Yeah, so we're using that single decocted. We're using a sort of new variety of hops that's called Most.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually a crossbred between Saaz and Jester. So Most means the bridge. It's a bridge between the Czech and British culture.
Okay.
So I thought it would be nice way to sort of
I think that's
combine this together.
So, a really big question though is what yeast are you going to be using?
Well, I've used the WJC, the Einstein.
Okay,
So
yeah.
the German yeast strain. Built up a starter for that because I really wanted the active fermentation going into ready wort. And it's I've got a good experience with the yeast, creating clean profile, a little bit of sulfurs, which you can get rid of in the maturation.
Yeah.
And I think it works well in that recipe. Also because I know we brewed with, talking back about the hops with Saaz before.
Yeah.
So actually I thought it would be nice for a change, choose a different hops variety.
Yeah, nice, excellent.
And actually interesting there, so you're using the dried yeast, but you've chosen to make a starter. How big a starter is it?
So it's a 2 liters.
Yeah.
Coming with 200 grams of dried malt extract.
Okay.
A little zinc, always that's a little spice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such an important part of yeast health, which we're learning more and more about at the moment. So yeah, that addition of zinc into the starter, that's a pro tip.
I also believe like these days the hit or the focus is more on the hops. Everyone's talking about hops, but not really everyone talks about the yeast as much and the vitality of yeast, the viability of yeast. So I believe like making a starter, like even from dry yeast, even that you're not supposed to or you shouldn't, I think it's still beneficial towards the final product.
So how long have you let that ferment out for?
Somewhere between 24 to 36 hours.
Okay.
So making sure like you'll see the starter. So
Yeah.
it's really active. It's already through the high corrosion part.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's thick and it's beautiful.
Awesome.
Oh, I can't
Nice.
wait. This sounds like a really interesting recipe. One question though, have you brewed it before?
Yes, I have brewed it. So
Okay, because I saw some taps when we were walking through.
that's always
did
that.
find it.
So is it on tap downstairs?
It is downstairs on tap. Yeah.
Nice,
So
nice.
I thought it would be beneficial, when we talk about a recipe and making it throughout the day, it would be great to taste it. So I brewed it 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, less than
Oh,
4
wow.
weeks
Okay,
ago.
so that's still fresh beer.
Fresh beer, but
That's very fresh.
Yeah.
well, once we
Yeah.
try it, I'm quite confident then it doesn't have any of flavors and it's ready to be drank.
Awesome.
I'll leave it to you.
Right. Okay, I know we're all going to be really eager to crack into brew day, right? I know I am. I can't wait to brew with you. It's been a while since we brewed together last. But before we do, we need to take a look at your setup here, okay? Because you've got an awesome setup. Now, you've converted a bedroom in your house into a brewery, right? Which I think is just absolutely fantastic. So we're going to give everybody a bit of a closer look at what your setup is before we get doughed in, all right?
No, let's do that.
Radim, you started brewing with a couple of plastic buckets. I see we've had a bit of an upgrade.
It took some time.
Yeah. Okay, quick overview of the system. We've got a Brewtools B40pro brewing system, a SS Brewtech, and that's the 7-gal Chronicle, and an Ice Master G20 glycol chiller. So that is a fantastic setup. I see that you've done some customizing on the Brewtools B40. Can you just kind of talk us through that?
Yeah, so pretty much for me, the Brewtools is the system that, I want to be efficient in my brew day. I don't want the brew day to take the whole day.
Yeah.
I can knock out the brew day within 5 hours with cleaning. So I think that's quite efficient. Also, like the whole setup generally, it's quite small. So, I can contain a little space.
Yeah.
And I think it's like as close as you can get to like a brewery standards.
Sure.
So by talking about the B40, I just wanted to sort of adjust it so I don't have to change anything all the time. So now I'm using the free valve setup just to sort of redirect the wort or the CIP to any direction, so I don't have to take anything out. And
Yeah,
connect it back.
basically with it in this configuration, you don't have to undo anything, do you, to be able to brew, chill, clean, and CIP? It's just the whole thing's as is.
For me, like it's also like one of the best like brew in a bag systems, or single vessel systems, because they have like the control that allows me to actually brew like I would say high standard beers. It's just so efficient and it works well.
So you've added temperature sensors on here as well. So you can obviously measure the temperature of the wort or mash in the tank, but you can also measure the temperature on the pump return.
on the pump and the return
And the return, yeah,
well.
at the same time.
at the same time.
And then you've also got another mash temperature sensor as well. So the amount of control that you've got there is huge over the temperature.
That's a nice way of saying that I'm a control freak, but but I know I like to know the temperatures, you know, and I don't want to rely on a one temperature probe. I think it's quite essential. Like if you want to make high quality beers, you want to know the temperature of the mash inside, but also the temperature in the tank. But also when it comes to cooling, you want to know what's the temperature return before you can cast it over to fermenter. So it's really, it allows me that freedom of knowing,
Sure.
but also controlling.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so that's the making the wort. Next onto the fermenter, so slightly less customization on that. I see you've got a blow off setup there, which just makes it
Much easier.
Yeah, it makes it much easier. And obviously the Ice Master, the G20 glycol chiller, we found it to be an absolutely fantastic tool.
It's a great workhorse. So usually, like when I brew lagers, I chill it down by water because I'm really cautious about using not like enough water and not waste too much water.
Yeah, sure.
So I chill down the wort to around 20-23.
Yeah.
Get it into stainless steel. I really believe that stainless steel it's superior towards plastics. I used to brew in from Zillas. I used to brew in plastic buckets.
Yeah.
They get scratched. They get infected.
Yeah, sure.
So stainless steel for me just cuts it.
Yeah.
And then once you have that wort around that 20-23 degrees, you just have the ability to cool it down to like pitching temperature around 10-11 degrees Celsius. So I think for it's brilliant. And also we all know, homebrewers know that controlling the temperature is essential for greatest beers. So that gives me the flexibility of creating quite, I would say, high quality beers.
Awesome. Look, I can't wait to get the mash in, because although I've brewed a fair amount on a B40, I've not brewed on one with this level of automation and customization. So let's get doughed in.
Let's get at it.
Radim, we've mashed in, that process is now underway, but one of the things that's massively important to you is decoction. And unusually you're going to do a decoction on a all-in-one vessel when we can quite easily step the mash temperature up. Tell us about why you want to do a decoction.
Well,
and tell us what a decoction is, importantly.
I think to start with, what is decoction is basically, it's a traditional way of using under modified malt, raising the temperatures, but also raising the yield in a nutshell.
Okay.
Yeah. Reason I chose decoction, because like in a homebrew world, the decoction, even in professional world, the decoction is sort of a myth. Yeah, you shouldn't be using that, some would say, and it doesn't have any benefits. I believe that actually decoction has a lot of benefits, especially on the flavor side.
Yeah.
But also, it just brings the depth and body in a beer, and it's so much worth. And also, one of those myths would be, well, it takes so much time. Today, I'm going to show you that actually you can do a single decoction or single step decoction within the 60 minutes mesh schedule.
Okay. All right, I can't wait to see that. So exactly how do you carry out the process?
So pretty much I'm going to mesh in at 65.
Yep.
After 20 minutes, I'm going to draw the calculated amount of decoction, or the portion for the decoction. I'll put it into a separated vessel. So I've got an induction hob, I've got a stainless steel pot.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it in there. I'm not going through the alpha amylase step. I'm going to bring it straight up to the boil.
Okay.
And then after around 20 minutes, I'm going to return it for the mesh out temperature.
This might be a step that's quite difficult for some of our viewers to understand, because it kind of goes against, I was going to say it kind of goes against the grain, but literally it kind of goes against the grain to be actually boiling the grain, when all you get told is, oh, it can lead to astringency and those sort of issues. How thick is that mash portion that we're going to be taking out?
Well, the thickness, I would say it's the same thickness as you have in your main vessel.
Okay.
You wouldn't, that's one of the misconceptions, is like, oh, you should be using the thick portion of the mash. But again, like if we have, let's say in here we're having 20 liters of water, 15 liters of water and around 5 kilos of grain.
Yeah.
And if you take the thick portion away, all you're going to be left in is a thick wort.
Yeah.
And then all the grains will be in the kettle. So I always think of it like think of it the way that the pump would take it through.
Got it.
So the thickness, I would say, is the same thickness as you, on your mashing in.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what this is going to do. To the mash, be able to taste the decocted liquor afterwards and actually see the difference of what it does. This is going to be great.
Wow, Radim, that decoction mash was amazing. The smell in here was just off the chart. Getting it back into the kettle, seeing the temperature jump up like it did. Yeah, I absolutely love that method, and it's something I'm going to be trying myself now. You've really helped, I think, dispel the myth of how difficult decoction mashing can be. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, what I'd love to do is, whilst we're here exploring your brewing setup and your equipment, I'd love to know what are some of the things that you've got in this space that make it kind of the most efficient and effective and make Brewday go smoothly. I mean, I think I've already noticed one of them, which is that you've got a beer fridge in the brew house.
Yeah, I always need to have a beer after the brew day. I don't drink when I brew.
Yeah.
But I like to have a crack a couple of cans after the brew day. Just, you deserve it. It's a hard work.
Yeah, absolutely, right. During cleanup as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that feeling of being on the home stretch of brew day when you're kind of done as much as you can and you're happy, you've got your wort in the fermenter and it's just tidying up.
Time to wind down.
Yeah, excellent. But what are the more practical things that you've got in here then that help you?
So I would say the floor. Yeah, so I'm having like PVC flooring. So it's basically placed on the carpets. I live in a rented property. I always have. So pretty much, getting around different places. You always want the deposit back.
Yeah.
Sometimes brewing can get messy. Yeah. So having something on the floor that, like I don't have to worry about when I spill a little bit of something.
Yeah.
I can wipe it right away. So it would be first thing. Second thing, I would say the control. Again, like for me, it gives me peace of mind when I actually can control the process. So first thing, pH meter.
Yeah. Okay.
I've tried some of those, those cheaper pH meters, but with this one, you can calibrate it. You gotta control that your pH is within the range. Even we talk about pH of lagers. Yeah. But still, I always like to take the notes because using different molds can, put the pH in different scale. Yeah. So just to have a control over that.
Well, if you're not using RO water, just the pH coming out your tap water can vary throughout the year, depending on what's going on with the season, with the reservoirs that are out in your local water source. So yeah, that's an awesome bit of kit.
So pH meter, essential. I've invested into EasyDent on the bar. Again, especially for homebrewer, you only need 5 milliliters of sample to put it through. So it saves me lots of wort, which means I can have extra beer or extra 5 beers. Yeah. If it comes to like standard hydrometer.
Yeah, if you're using a standard trial jar, you've got to draw off, what are they, 150 milliliters, something like that, for every sample that you want to take. And actually, if you want to be really meticulously tracking your fermentation throughout the whole process, it's an awesome way to do it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we've just started selling them, and actually we've been playing around with them at work a little bit. I was blown away at both how quickly it reads gravity.
It's also a great thing because you got a connected app to it.
Yeah.
So it's basically for me, like if I brew different beers, someone asks me, like, yo, what was the final gravity or what was the final ABV? I'll be like, yeah, pull up the app and I can always have access to it.
Yep.
And also, if you beer geek and you like your fermentation curve, it shows your fermentation curve. So it's got lots of benefits. And again, like, pretty much just flush it with the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't have to clean up like extra hydrometer. I don't have to extra clean up the jar for it.
Yeah.
And all the things. And also like, the amount of sample you need for this is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so what other bits and pieces have you got in here? I see you've got a duo filler behind your head there.
Yeah, so I do like canning. For me, canning is something quite essential. I used to bottle. Bottling was great, but again, cleaning up the bottles, that's extra time. Bottles are quite heavy as well, so if I want to like give a samples to my friends, the can you always can chuck it in a backpack and go somewhere. It doesn't cling and break. And
come on, let's face it, it's just really cool being able to give your friend a can of beer that you made, right? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, people will be like, oh, you do canning, and even professional brewers will be like, oh, you can. I was like, yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the dual filter is actually amazing. I've done some testing in the lab in the brewery for total package oxygen.
Okay.
So if you set it up right, you can actually achieve like brewery standards of packaging.
Oh wow! So you've had your beer in a can tested at Budvar to see what your dissolved oxygen levels are.
Yeah, total package oxygen.
Oh wow!
I love cans.
Yeah,
so
nice.
I'm using also the cannula, the semi-automatic can sealer.
Yeah.
Amazing piece of equipment, and again, the investment is a little bit bigger, but then the quality, and you can store the beer almost forever.
what I'm really getting a sense of here, and it doesn't come as a surprise having worked with you in the past, but the level of detail and meticulous control you put into place to ensure the quality of your finished beer is second to none, and I for one can't wait to actually try some of this beer shortly. Something I'm also really excited about is the hops that you're using in this beer today. So Malt, which is a fairly new European variety. It's been bred, as you said earlier, between Sars and Jester.
Correct.
It's obviously going to have come about because of the immense amount of hop breeding that's being done in Europe to try and find crops that are going to be really sustainable and help with the changing world that we're in. But what's your approach to hopping this beer?
So pretty much I still follow like the European approach to it. So I do first war hopping.
Okay.
Again, it might be my perception, but every beer that I do, I always do first war hopping. Just find out the bitterness. It's more complex, more supreme, more better. That's my opinion. Second edition in 30 minutes is sort of like a flavor palette, and then last one is 50 minutes at the end.
Okay.
So pretty much like the traditional brew length would be 90 minutes. I contain it within 60 minutes, but still following that same sort of ratio at the same stage.
Yeah, nice. Okay, and that's a very traditional approach, isn't it? Right, we're adding an aroma addition right towards the end of the boil, but not at flame out.
So flame out.
Still going to pick up a few IBUs from it. Still going to retain some of the lovely floral notes, and
also I think adding hops at a flame out will not aid towards clear wort.
Yeah.
So I don't tend to add anything after 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I do some other styles, I again tend to add Whirlpool at 75 degrees rather than adding flame out.
Yeah.
Again, as my experience, that's how I prefer it. Yeah. Other than that, pretty much the hopping rates remain the same. In this recipe, I was aiming for 28 IBU. So for me, that's that sweet spot that balances the maltiness and the bitterness.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say more because we're going to taste it. So I'm not going to affect you.
But I guess what we need to do now is focus on getting this brew finished, getting the boil finished, adding some hops, and then getting it into the fermenter. Radim, water treatment and water profiles. Obviously, on any beer, it's really, really important. Brewing a lager it's super important. So people can go to Murphy's and do a water profile for their own water, but I'm really interested in your approach because it's totally different.
Yeah. So this is the question I get to ask most from brewers and homebrewers, what's the water profile like? And in commercial brewery or in Budvar, we actually don't do any water treatment, part of sand filtering. Well, I try to translate it into homebrewing as well, because sometimes we get too much in playing with different mineral salts, adjusting the pH with any sort of organic acids and that sort of thing. So on this recipe, I actually just went with our water.
Okay.
And with no pH adjustment. Yeah. So usually the experience is that the pH is much higher than most of the books would suggest.
Yeah.
But again, tried and tested with the great results. And I think if commercial breweries do it, why homebrewers wouldn't do it? I think our water is a great starting point without getting any more adjustment to it.
So just to get this straight, you're using plain RO water and you are not adding any salts back to it, nothing at all, just brewing with straight RO water.
Straight RO water.
Awesome. Okay. And so this has come about via practicing and brewing the recipe and finding out what works. And actually, I know that you're a big advocate of that because I've heard you speak about it on quite a few times before. Someone asks you a question about what's this going to do to my beer, you don't necessarily tell them. You say, well, go and brew it and find out what happens, because
taste. I found like as a home brewer, like starting as a home brewer was a great starting point for me, because reading about all the books, you know, from Palmer and all these guys, and you know, they might have sourced it from some German brewing books, and I try to read some German brewing books, and like, you know, there's always that this discrepancies in the books, that someone says this, someone says that.
Yeah, sure.
You know, there is no like golden rule to it.
Yeah.
But you know, I always say, read about it, learn about it, but also try it yourselves.
Okay, so what about the fermentation profile as well? Because obviously the yeast health dials right back to the water profile at the start in many ways. So how do you make sure that you have a really healthy fermentation?
So we've already mentioned the starter. So I always do starters, especially when I do lagers.
Yeah.
You know, calculating the right amount of yeast cells, very essential. Then I'm using zinc.
Okay.
In the brew house. So 10 minutes at the end, I put half minute of liquid zinc.
Yeah.
Because usually the zinc would stay in a spent grain, and zinc, the mineral, has quite many functions for the yeast health.
Sure.
So generally, I want to have some zinc in there, and then when it comes to fermentation, just controlling the fermentation and good hygiene.
Yeah.
4 rules, 4 steps.
That's what it is. Cheers, lads.
That's very.
It seems like an appropriate point to be enjoying a beer. So this is your first version of it, right?
The first version.
I mean,
different malt.
Look at it.
So this has been 4 weeks.
4 weeks now, less than 4 weeks.
Let's go in. Oh, Radim. Mate, that's
a beer.
Wow.
Does it taste like homebrew, you say?
And that is absolutely delicious. Oh, the breadiness.
The
breadiness is absolutely, it's really, really high up there.
It's like lightly toasted bread, smothered in honey, eaten in a field on a lovely kind of harvest afternoon or something. It's just,
I think it's a really good Czech Lager, James.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, the breadiness is something that you cannot substitute by adding any other malts. It's a decoction.
Is it
where
a decoction? Yeah.
The melanoid is, created in that boil. I think I've tasted it a couple of days ago by 1, and I finished with 15. Drink responsibly.
I can understand why though, because it's incredibly sessionable.
Well, yeah, and we've seen that colour development and flavour development that the decoction does by tasting the resulting decoction once it's been boiled, and the difference between that and what was left in the kettle is absolutely marked.
The clarity, the color formation, the flavor formation, when it all adds in, it's those little things that you tweak and then you end up with something. In my opinion, I'm super happy with this type of beer.
What I love about it is that it's incredibly authentic to the style, but the way that you've crafted the recipe by doing a single decoction and still maintaining it to an hour's boil and using ingredients and techniques that are
accessible.
Yeah, accessible and clever, like using a packet of yeast and then creating a starter, because you can then grow a significant amount of yeast to pitch really healthily into this, and that's really what would have resulted in that super clean fermentation.
We sometimes know about that you're upgrading the equipment. Sometimes you can upgrade the approach.
Yeah.
And those little steps, like, eventually will all add up together, and you end up with something that is, super high drinkable. You're enjoying it, and you are most importantly proud of it.
Yeah. Well, you should be incredibly proud of that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well done, mate.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, Radim. Radim, you've pitched the yeast. You're going to take control of fermentation. And all I've got to say is a massive thank you. You've immersed us in the brew world and serving world that is Radim. And you've also given us some amazing breakfast and some amazing lunch, which we've absolutely loved. Thank you very much.
You've been super hospitable. Thank you. It's always a pleasure to see you, but you know, today's been really, really cool.
Yeah, always pleasure to see you, and hopefully we'll have some more beers, and hopefully everyone's tried to brew the recipe kit.
Yeah. That's where we're headed next, because really it's over to you all watching this video at home. If you want to have a go at brewing this awesome recipe that Radim's put together, there's a link in the description below to an all-grain recipe kit, including full instructions on how to perform the decoction and everything else that Radim's put into place today to craft this awesome brew with us. Now, all that remains for us to say is another big thank you. Cheers. I would give you a handshake, but Reiki's not here to do it. And actually, if you've got thoughts, comments or questions, drop them down below in the comments section. We will get back to you. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Cheers.
Cheers.